Hey guys, so here recently, testing season is in full swing. Yuck, and we're all kind of stressed out and so forth. But I've been talking to different people on Facebook, and one of the things I just continue to hear is that so many teachers have just been sucked into this idea that you have to do all of this drill and kill test prep instruction. And I've posted a few things. If you follow me, you know how I feel about all this. But here's the thing. I want to be really honest with you. Test taking is not a state standard. So even if you are an advocate of standardized testing, which I can't even imagine, but if you are, you're not you're not doing what you've been mandated to do. There's a certain set of standards you're supposed to be teaching. If you believe in standards-based education, I don't, but if you do, test taking is not one of them. And so if you're spending the majority of your time doing worksheets and how do you answer this question, how do you answer that question, you're teaching how to take a very specific test. You're not teaching how to write and how to read and how to use these different skills in real world contexts. And so I want to show you how this can work in a classroom. For those of you who are just stressing out about, well, what about the test? Well, what about the test? Okay, fine. For me, what I say, what about the test is, and this is counterintuitive, but forget about it. and go about teaching, providing providing authentic learning experiences for your students, and the test will take care of itself over time. We keep taking this shortcut view. It's like a triage type of education where it's just we're just going to throw band-aids at it every year. And so we have this same thing every year. Everybody's, this rush on Facebook. Do you have anything? What kind of activities do you have for, this and for that? Anyway, I'm going to show you. So what kind of skills that are tested can we learn from things like free choice writing, for example? Having your kids write on their own what they want to write about every single day. Here a list of the TEKS for reading and writing in the state of Texas that you can cover, and that they will be able to learn during free choice writing. All of them. Every single one. So let me repeat that. For reading and writing, embedded in free choice writing, all of them. The other benefit is that you will have students who learn to love writing and not walk into class every day hating school. I think that's a pretty important thing. So, and then there's one more huge one. I attended this mandated character education training thing for part of our curriculum. It was earlier this week, and one of the things they asked us is, what are some additional things you're doing in the classroom to support social, emotional, skills, in addition to the curriculum that we have for that, And I thought about that for a little while. There's a study that came out a couple of years ago that just showed that young readers who read a lot of, young people who read a lot of fiction become more empathetic human beings. They learn empathy because they are connecting as people with the characters in the books that they read. And so that carries over to writing. There's a reciprocity there where when I'm writing fiction, I'm now, emulating what I've heard in different books, and I'm emulating characters, but I'm infusing a little bit of myself in there as well. So, they're learning empathy. So I'm getting ready to show you a video. And this writer, her name is Serena. Keep in mind, I work at a Title I school that is truly Title I. 50% of the students of our fourth grade students are in a bilingual program. And I'll read you just a little bit. This is her notebook. This is from the very beginning of school. This was her writing. One day, I went to Six Flags. We've heard that, right? If you're a fourth grade writing teacher. And it's hard to even read because of her handwriting. I did a few things like the mine train and the swings. And it was almost time to go home. And my aunt said, this is all one sentence. My aunt says, let's ride Batman. She said, and then I say, we did that yesterday. I said, but it will be fun. She said, okay. Guess it can't hurt. I said, this is all one sentence. And there was a very small line a minute later. It was our turn. And we got on. And it was a fun day. So that's her writing on the first week of school. So as you're listening to Serena read her writing from today or from this week, think about the standards that you teach in your classroom that you're so concerned about that are going to be on the test. Which of those standards is she imitating or using effectively, and others that maybe she's just approximating? And then also think about how she is connecting with her character and learning empathy. So here's Serena.
People all have their own life, and they have their own opinions, likings, and thoughts. And I have a saying for that. And it is, everyone has their very own book. And mine can make you think my life is sad, or has a lot of drama, or I must be mad all the time. But I can say I think it's all of those things. The beginning. It was my first day of 6th grade, and I didn't have a very good reputation at my elementary school. So I was hoping I would get a fresh start in middle school. But no. When I walked in, my old bully said, "Egghead!" I thought about when they egged my house and hit me in the head. I felt so embarrassed. I could hear just a bunch of kids laughing at what he had said. I wanted to scream, "Stop!" But I just walked away. I said to myself, I had dealt with worse before. So I get my paper I wrote that told me where my class was. It was class E59. The teacher's name was Mrs. Horton. I thought, that's my old teacher's name. I stepped in. It was her, but I stayed calm and sat down. I already knew what I was going to do after school. Gave Mrs. Horton a big hug. Mrs. Horton was the only one that caught on that I was getting bullied. She was there when I went through my hardest times. She was like a mom to me. She was there more than my mom sometimes. Later at lunch, I asked the lunch monitor to sit alone. A girl named Nevaeh approached me and asked me, "Why are you crying?" And this is what I told her. My name is Audrina, and this is my story. It began in 1st grade. I was walking to my table, my hair a mess, my clothes ripped. Thud. I fell because this guy named Eric put his foot out and tripped me. He acted like nothing happened, and they all laughed. I ran out to the hall and started to cry and passed out. My eyes burned. The light was so bright, it felt like I was staring at the sun.
Oh my God. Okay, so you and I kind of already had a discussion about this. You've read it to me before just a minute ago. And one of the things we talked about, I just want to talk about it since we're recording now, is so one of the things that impressed me about your writing and what I really like is the style that you're writing it in reminds me of some other books that I've read where I can tell that you're kind of imitating that style, even if you didn't know you were, right? We kind of talked about that. So talk to me about that. Like, what were some of the influences you think?
The two books, you were reading Fish in a Tree, and I was reading Wish, which they were kind of similar in the writing. So I think I kind of took some of those two books and imitated those into mine.
So what do you think it was about that style? That, because yours kind of sounds like that when I'm listening to the character. What do you think it is?
I think personally they're both like telling their own story,
Yeah.
like what happened to them, and like it's not like a narrator, it's them talking.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that. Love that. Thank you for meeting with me.
So let me be clear for anyone who is just dead set on doing nothing but test prep. Almost every single reading and writing TEK was somehow represented and reinforced and used by Serena during the process of writing that piece. Every single one. If you're worried about, the upcoming revise and edit, and I'm reading off my notes because I made some notes for this part, but if you're worried about that, and how can I teach those skills, teach them in context. Teach them the way that they are writing, in their own writing. It's going to transfer, and it's just going to be a lot more powerful in the long run for them. She used skills for punctuation, sentence boundaries, commas, apostrophes, punctuating dialogue, proper use of homophones, transitions, specificity over vagueness, proper nouns. She strengthened her depth of understanding related to first-person writing versus third-person. And you saw that at the end when she talked about it. Just about every skill that could possibly be on that multiple choice is represented in some way in this writer's piece. And yes, for those of you, because I can hear the questions now, even expository writing. How is that? Well, this is where we get confused with expository. All of this boxes and bullets, the first reason is, the second reason is, on and on and on. It's weak writing. It serves a purpose because it's introducing them to the structure, but it's weak. So how can we strengthen that? Well, all writing, even expository writing, is grounded in narrative. It's all telling a story. The really powerful expository writing is has elements of narrative in it. And I'm going to show you an example. This is another one of my students named Shania. This is from her benchmark, her writing benchmark that she took a couple of weeks ago. And she's emulating the one and only Ivan. I talked to her about it, and that's what she's doing. So, but she's doing it in a way that answers the prompt. The prompt was write about something that was hard for you to do, and explain why it was so difficult. So I'm just going to read you the beginning, just the first couple of paragraphs. Hello, my name's Shania. I play basketball. I really didn't have a choice. I was forced to play. My mom and dad made me, so I had to play. It wasn't really my thing, but my mom said I had to be a mini her. My first day wasn't very easy. I had a lot to do. We had to dribble with our opposite hand with 2 balls. But now, there are even more things I still don't know about basketball. Okay, she keeps going and leads you in to, she's explaining the why it was so hard before she answers the prompt. But she leads you in to closer to the end, where she is going to explain to the reader how that this thing was very, very difficult to her, but that she learned it. That is a much more sophisticated way of writing an essay than to answer the prompt and say, the first reason is, the second reason is. This is way more sophisticated writing. So, and she learned all of this through free choice writing and through reading and imitating other writers.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought or little story. About a week ago, I got a new student, and anytime I have a new student, the very first thing I do is meet with him or her to just kind of determine what they know and what they've learned, and where they're at in certain areas. So during our writing time, I met with this little girl, and she is from Florida. She came into Texas, so I just kind of tried to get a gauge on what she knows. And we looked at some expository writing. Immediately, I thought, yeah, she knows quite a bit about expository writing. And then I asked her, what kind of, just an open-ended, what kind of writing did you do in school? And so she proceeded to kind of describe to me how every single morning they would come in and there would be a prompt on the board and they had to respond to the prompt, and everything was very formulaic, what she was describing to me. And so next we would work this little step thing, and then we would do these steps. And so I thought, okay, well, she has formula down. So I kind of tried to describe to her what we do during our workshop, and I said, okay, so now we're going to go off. I'm going to send you off, and I want you just to write about whatever you want to write about. And she looked at me just like confused, like she had no idea what I was talking about, and she just kind of stared at me for a second and said, so do I write an essay? And I said, you can write about whatever you want. You can write a story, you can write a song, you can write a recipe, you can tell me how to make something, you can talk about your day, you can write about absolutely anything you want. And so then she said, I can write a story? And I said, yeah, you can write a story. She said, does it have to be real? And just still kind of confused. And so I repeated, there's absolutely no rules. You can write whatever you want. And she just looked at me with this amazing... It's sad. It's sad that we're doing this to kids, guys. This is not teaching writing. It's not teaching these kids to write, and it's really messing them up. We have got to stop with the constant prompts. You can teach these skills that we're worried about for the test in real world contexts in their free choice writing. And when you don't, you destroy all intrinsic motivation. I'm just telling you, I don't want it to sound harsh, I know it kind of does, if that's kind of the loop that you have been stuck into, you've been trapped in. That happens to all of us. So please keep this in mind. I'm going to show you this last clip. This is Allison. This is the very first thing she wrote in my class. She just went off. I sent her off. She wrote it. She came back and shared it with me.
In the beginning of time, the sun and the moon were very little when they crashed into each other. This created a girl named Nova. She had one gray eye and one yellow eye, yellow and gray hair, and wings that were as white as snow. She never knew her parents because she was sent down to Earth and put in a school. At her school, people bullied her a lot. So one day she got so mad that she crashed down the moon on them, on the bullies. And since that day she stays hidden from humanity, never to show her face in public because she's too afraid to. She's afraid of herself.